What's up, everybody? This is Herschel Fruin, and this is the Top 200 podcast. Welcome to the Monday morning meeting, where we're going to look at these past games that we've had just in the weekend. Talk about some of the teams that are going, that will be going up in the rankings, and also some of the teams that will be falling. Kind of just talking about some of the surprise results, because there are a little bit of surprise results. Also want to talk about some people asking questions about, my little rant that I had, and just to answer a few. I don't want to talk about that too much, but I will cover just answer some of the questions that people had, and just so it is as clear as I can make it to people and what I want to do. But first off, it was I think I talked about this before with Palmy. Palmy already playing Francis Douglas. I still think Palmy's going to be one of the top teams this year, and I still think that they can take out Hastings or Hamilton, or maybe both of them. And this could be a year for Palmy boys. The Hastings team also played on Wednesday as well, and they played Lindisfarne College, who's had two really good games against top 25 teams and really come close. I picked the Fielding one over Gisborne. I picked that one. But the Waitaki and the blood match, the Waitaki and St. Kevin's game was... I was surprised that they won, but I was more surprised at how they won and the score, which they won by, like 56 points to 15 is a huge score. And I think that might be like the most scored in that game is 56 points. But big ups to St. Kevin's for that one. And and from what I heard, because there was like a lot of stuff that was happening before the matches, like the lead up into the matches, and how just like vandalism stuff. And I think like rivalries can do that kind of stuff, and you do see it, but I think there's like a thin line between, I guess, a prank and borderline vandalism and breaking the law. I watch all these prank things that they have on YouTube and stuff like that, and some of them are funny. Some of them I understand why they get punched in the face. I always think it's funny when the person gets punched in the face and then gets annoyed at the person that punched them and thinks that saying it's just a prank is the right answer to give. Because I don't know, like if that was me, I'll probably punch him in the face too. It's like they never ever thought that someone would hit him just for a prank. I was like, well, he doesn't know it's a prank. He thinks it's real. Your prank was so good that you got punched in the face. But so like with these things that were going on before the blood match game between Waitaki and St. Kevin's, I think it was getting to a point where they were one step away from actually something really, really serious. And so I'm glad that all the boys and all the supporters from both schools were really good about it, and nothing major happened. And they kind of, they saw, I guess, what was being put out and how bad it started to look. But, congrats for St. Kevin's for winning that game anyway, and the manner in which they won. I went to St. Kit's, as all of you guys saw by following my Instagram and Facebook, and that St. Kit's game against Mags, and I'll write about it. I'm writing a few things now about it, and just kind of looking over my pictures and my the footage that I took, and just kind of looking at the different things that I could see again about the game, because to me it was obvious. For one, it was obvious that the forwards for St. Kit's were the most dominant. And they're probably going to be the most dominant forward pack for everybody in the country because I think that they have the best forward pack. But then it was also obvious on the other side that the backs for Mags were obviously better than the St. Kitts backs. And just the way that they ran things from the back lines, the St. Kitts were lucky that those forwards were there. And lucky that those forwards were all over the park. And that's, Will Basin, Tarama Rubin, and also Ben Ake, who was like... Ben Ake has played like 7 different positions for St. Kitts, something like that. He's so ridiculous in what he can do. And even any position that you put him in, he dominates in every position that you put him in. And him playing as blindside, he just looked like a blindside. That's just how he is. It's just how good he is. And so like it's pretty cool that that forward pack can put something together that they're so good that they can balance out the backs and make them better as well. And their backline, and it's not that the backline is bad, they're just a year away from being good. They're just too young. They're too young. And I can understand why they're young. Like, I see what they have and I know why they're young. And that's just the options that they have right now, the best options that they have. And so, with injuries and just, when you have private schools, like everyone has this misconception about private schools, they have the best players. Like, they don't. And second of all, they don't have a lot of players to choose from. Like, their 22 will be strong, but anything other than that, you're scraping. You might as well jump to under 15s and try and grab someone from there. You can't really rely that much on your second 15 if you have a second 15 or a third 15 or even your under 16. So, I think St. Kitts is just in that position now where they've just got too many young guys in that back line. Jade Stewart and Blake Walker just seem to be trying to do it by themselves because they don't have Treya, who's injured for the season, and hopefully he comes back next year. But they're just missing a lot. They're missing a lot, and they're just doing the best that they can with what they have, and youth is what they have. So the coaching staff there at St. Kitts are working through that and then finding out what else they need to do from game to game to make them better. And Mags, on the other hand, with that backline that they have, and the move, to me, it was more about the movement of that backline and how they would drop players, bring players up, how they would attack off kicks, how they would pinpoint attacks in terms of pods and having forwards running with their backs. I just thought it was so smart, and I just thought the way that Cassius and Nicholas were just controlling everything, and Tama Anderson, I think, played the best game that I've ever seen Tama play before, and he was so good, and Chris was so good, and also Henry as well, and everyone, pretty much everyone on their backline played really, really good, and it showed how dominant they would be. And Sevens is going to be interesting too, because if it works out well, because they've got really good loose forwards in that Mags team as well, that I think translate really well when it comes to Sevens. And so this year's Sevens for Condors is going to be interesting, and how Mags turns out for that, because I think they're going to be really, really good. And that's probably a team that everyone should probably watch out for, is Mags, when it comes to Sevens. But yeah, I'll write about that a bit more later on tonight when I get my stuff all organized together. And but yeah, Hamilton boys, the number 2 team in the country, they played against St. John's, and St. John's is a team for next year. If and this is to coaches and sports directors, rugby directors, stuff like that. If there's a team that you're looking to play next year, that is going to be really, really strong, and you just kind of want to test yourself, I would get a hold of St. John's Hamilton, because they have a young team just full of young guys, and they're only going to have, I think, 3 players leave this year. And that's it. And everybody else is going to be returning, because everyone else is year 12 and year 11, and I think they only have 3 year 13s or 4 year 13s, something like that. But everyone else is going to be out. Everyone's going to be back next year, and this is their year to get ready. And so these year 12s and year 11s, and I think a lot of those year 12s are young year 12s as well. Next year, I think they're just going to be way more prepared. They got smoked by Sacred Heart in their first warm up game, which was like the best thing for them is to have such a hard team like that, just pretty much demolish them. And then when they came to Rotorua Boys on that real wet day, they lost 15-0 against another young side in Rotorua Boys, who was the other team that I watched. And then they played Hamilton Boys, and they lost 36-5. So to me, that's a lot of progress in terms of a team that's so young. And so like they're a team that I'll be watching for a lot next year, and just seeing how they develop. The Auckland Grammar game was an upset. It's not a big upset because in terms of rankings, I've explained it before, but if you're ranked third and you're playing someone who's 12th or 15th, you're still in that range of 7 points. You're still in that range of 7 to 8, 9 points. Like, it's not a big difference. Like, I know the number of the ranking seems far away when you look at it that way, but in terms of skills and in terms of score lines and things like that, they're not that different at all. So it's an upset, but it's not like a huge upset like this could never happen. It's not one of those ones. And because like if you look at the Kings, who was ranked 5th, them drawing with De La Salle is more of an upset to me than Auckland Grammar losing to Sacred. Because De La Salle has such a young team, and I saw them the week before against Kelston Boys, and they had their chances right there to win that game. And Kelston were actually pretty lucky they didn't lose. And so, to me, it's kind of proving that De La Salle has a lot more than what I thought they would have. And their boys are actually, and the younger boys that have come into that team are actually responding a lot more and responding better than I thought they would. And that's the cool thing that I like about First 15 Rugby and seeing all these young boys come into this is that you may have a year 11 boy or a year 12 boy come into the next year, and you don't really know how he's going to respond to it. Like that anticipation and that initial surprise of like, oh shoot, this kid is killing it now. Like, I don't think he was going to be like, I like that kind of stuff. I like seeing that boys really, it just really hits, like it just makes sense to them now. The game is a lot slower. The game, they just see it a lot differently now. So De La Salle to me is going through that now, and that coaching staff that they have there seems to be doing a lot of things right because these boys are responding to what they want them to do, and it's working. And so I'm pretty keen to see what the next few games are going to be like after this break. Like I said, Kelston losing to St. Peter's is an upset, just not a big major upset, but it was an upset. And so obviously St. Peter's is going to move up in the rankings and Kelston will drop back a bit. Not a huge amount of lift and dropping back. And as we see later in the year by these two teams playing all the other guys and then seeing what their winning and losing margins are, you get to see how good a team is and isn't. Because like a lot of rugby games, it's all about on the day kind of stuff. Like St. Kevin's on the day, you weren't picking a 50-something scoreline. You weren't even picking them to score 40 points or 30 points. But on the day, they just turned up and Waitaki just didn't. It's just that kind of thing. Is just like a lot of rugby is on the day stuff. Like you can't really predict it, and you can't really. You can get close to something, but predicting those kind of things, you just don't know. And schoolboy, and that's professionals. And schoolboys, you just don't really know. You don't know at all, because schoolboys they don't really have like a pattern. Actually, their pattern is like random. Is kind of what the pattern is for them. It's like you can't really predict what they're gonna kind of be like. It's just like on the day they may just not have a good day. they probably had a terrible night that they're still thinking about in the daytime, and they just don't have the experience to brush that stuff off and get into the game. So, um, yeah, that's something that's interesting about this level and that I like about this level as well. Um, Kings High School is a team that I like a lot. They got a win over Mount Aspiring, which was pretty easy, I guess. Uh, kind of disappointing at Mount Aspiring because I expected a lot more out of them this year. They have 7 or 8 returning players that I don't know, like maybe I'm putting too much on them, the expectation on them too much. But I really like the players that they do have coming back, and so or maybe we'll just pick up. You know, we're just in a terrible kind of season that's really unfamiliar to everybody on how this works, and so you know, maybe it turns out better. St. Andrews won 59-27 over Waimea combined. 27 is a lot of points to give up. It really is. Christchurch boys, I want to watch this game against St. Thomas because they, from what I heard, they got away with this one, and it could have been 2 years in a row that they lost to St. Thomas. And so, must be those uniforms, those black uniforms that they're wearing now. But it's just one of those things that I don't know whether Christchurch has to be worried or St. Thomas just has something over them now, like the Warriors used to have over the Storm kind of thing. Warriors are still depressing. We'll probably talk about that after this. But anyways, Silverstream beating Scots, and I'm really worried about Scots College now. You know, a few games in, and you don't really want to think that way about a squad that's so talented and that is so stacked with talent, but something is not right, and I hope they get it together. I really do, because they're just a really good team. On paper, a really good team, just something's not working for them. St. Paul's, what was it? Oh yeah, St. Paul's Collegiate and Napier, they played in Taupo, and I'll be going to the game tomorrow. That's the St. Paul's Collegiate and Gisborne one, so I'm gonna go watch them and see what it's like. But St. Paul's lost to Napier boys, who had a terrible outing. I think it was a terrible outing against Lindisfarne. I don't know if Lindisfarne was that great or that Napier boys was that terrible, but that gap definitely closed between those three schools, and it might just be that Lindisfarne is that good, and nobody really knows it yet, because I mean, if they're going to come that close to Hastings and come that close to Napier, so it must be a Lindisfarne thing, and they must be just a lot better than I expected them to be. But Napier really lifted their game, got 29 points over St. Paul's Collegiate, and St. Paul's had a few players missing, but I don't think it would have changed that much to the scoreline with those few players that they had missing. Rotorua boys and Wesley, I was putting the wrong score. I wasn't really paying attention because like when I record stuff and then I go in, you know, try and put in the scores and upload it at the same time before they kick off or before they start the next phase or before they do their stuff. Sometimes I just lose the track of what I'm actually posting and forget to change the score or forget to copy and paste the headline so I can keep going in. I was posting the wrong score for ages. I haven't looked back to see how much I got wrong, but yeah, Wesley ended up winning that game 13-10 over Rotorua. So Wesley's jumping up on the rankings, and Rotorua will be falling a little bit. Both teams actually have both teams have young sides. They have young players in their team, but one player I do like, and I'm going to be talking about is Jordan from Dargaville High School. And I remember seeing him last year and seeing some of the reports about him, especially from the Blues camp, things like that, and what they were talking about him. And Jordan plays open side, and this guy, he's I wish he would have got out of there earlier, I think, and just put him against better competition, because he's. Even yesterday, he was. Even on Saturday, he was so good. He was just. He's just one of those guys that just understands the game, understands his position and core roles, and he just, you know, I think that he was kind of like a level higher than a lot of the players that were on the field. Um, him and Takahashi were just a bit further than everybody else, um, as well as Junior. Far out. Junior from Wesley, he's a hooker. He's a young year 12. And when I saw him yesterday, because I haven't seen him since the under-15s from last year for Wesley, and he was playing as a year 11 hooker for Wesley First 15 as a young year 11, and I haven't seen him since last year. When I saw him on Saturday, I was like, holy crap, this dude has been working out. And he was so strong and so powerful. He was just so dominant in everything that he did. And he got Wesley out of a lot of stuff just with his influence of him being there, from making a pass, making a few good runs, like hitting tackles, and just everything he did. It was just real effective in the way that he performed on the field. And so he's another player that I'm pretty keen to see come through as well. St. Patrick Town, they did their thing. Put up 50 points on Rongotai. Shirley Boys had a really good win. I picked the St. Bede's one over Nelson. And that was, I heard that was a really good game to watch too. Beating Nelson 35-27. Otago Boys had a win over, a good win, I guess, over John McGlashan as well. And I think it's interesting to see what Otago Boys is going to be like, because it's so up in the air right now about what Otago Boys is going to be, because it's so different now. Like, it's so different in that team, and usually they have these big stars in there, but they don't really have them right now. But they have just like emerging kind of stars. They have emerging guys that are worth a look at, and that are worth a are worth putting in the discussion. Are worth putting them out there. Like Samisi, I saw a run from him, because he's their number 8, and he looks muscly too. He looks really good. Looks like he's been hitting the gym a lot. But Samisi took it from about the 30-meter. They had a scrum within in the John McGlashan half, and he took about 30 meters off a scrum, went blindside, and he must have fended off 5 of their guys to score a try in the corner. And even then, he is still a year. He's still a year away from being a top-notch player that is going to be dominant every game. Like, he's going to be a dominant most games, but he's not going to be that guy that's dominant every single game. Especially if he was going to start playing bigger schools. But next year he's going to be that guy. Next year that I'll be looking at a lot, because he is going to be that dominant guy. He's going to be that go-to guy that that once you give him the ball, he's going to make you go forward every single time. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they Otago gets through this year. What changes they're going to make when they play Kings again, and how they're going to go against Southland as well. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Dilworth and Liston was pretty good. Dilworth beating Liston, Aotearoa beating Tangaroa. I kind of expected that. St. Paul's and McLean's got a draw. Howick, I think, won. Were they the ones that won by default, or was it the Otahu game? Well, you get 28 points if you win by default. You win by 4 tries, so they give you a 28-0, and both Howick beat Waitakere 28-0, and then Otahu beat Pakuranga 28-0. So one of them was defaults. But I still think Otahu College should be in the 1A, or they should have had a shot to play 1A. Ongehange beat Avondale. I think I got that one wrong. I chose Botany over One Tree Hill. Botany put up a good score. And I don't know if that's Botany being like finding their pace and finding their rhythm or whatever, but that's kind of a score that I was expecting them to start putting up in the 1B. But who knows? We'll just wait for the next game and see what happens. Southern Cross beat Mount Roskill. Grammar School. Everyone in Wellington, so all the Wellington guys, all the Wellington teams now, they're playing to get into the Premier, and so they've got Mana College going up because they beat Hibs. Wairarapa beat Paraparaumu. Aotea beat Porirua, which was a surprise to me. I thought Porirua would win that, but it was such a close game, 27-22, and then Tawa College winning. I knew Tawa College was going to win that one. And so those four teams are now up there with Wellington, St. Bede's, Town, Silverstream, Scots, and Rongotai. And so I think the most intriguing team to watch in that is probably St. Bernard's, to see how good they're going to be this year. I mean, John O'Little, who's the open side, really good player. Jacob Laban's the other one at number 8. And just seeing them go up against, I guess, better competition. Getting to see them play, Silverstream and Town and Rongotai and, and Scots. And I would like to see them have sort of like just a good run of good teams to play against, just to test out their mental state of staying at that level. Because, I mean, when you play in a competition like theirs, and this is why the Super 8 and the 1A I value a lot more than the others, because teams mentally, especially in the 1A and the Super 8, have to stay at a high level. You can't really have a rest. Whereas if you're Silverstream and Town and Scots and those teams, they would look at those bottom teams and sort of point them out and be like, okay, we can take our risks on these games. And there'll be about 4 or 5 of them that they would play a really good half and then rest on the second half. But like in the Super 8 and 1A, you can't do that, because you'll quickly turn your win streak into, your winning first half into a tragic second half, and you're just going to look like cake at the end of it. I mean, the CNI is starting to look like that now, where they've got way more better games than they have terrible games. And that's just a change of roster and change of schools that they used to have in there. And also the schools are getting better coaching as well as better recruiting at the same time. And so, if that was, the CNI is just one of those competitions that's hard. The UC Championship is the same thing. Like, a lot of their teams are getting better. They are getting better. There's a few at the bottom that are still scraping the bottom, but they're having better years, more years than they're having terrible years. And so it makes it better for the competition as well. And I like the fact that Shirley's getting better, St. Thomas is getting better, Christ is getting better all the time, instead of, having 3 good years and then, 4 terrible years. The consistency of them is always getting better now. And so you're having a better competition, and as a whole, everyone's getting better within that region. When you look at, the Highlanders competition, it's just a bit different. I think the gap is a bit too wide, where you still just got the 4 horsemen at the top, and then everybody else is somewhere else. But then, John McGlashan losing to Dunstan High School is just like, ooh, maybe are you cutting it down to 3? Just a 3 horsemen now, not 4. But Wellington competition is going to be cool and going to be interesting. Westlake having a good. I knew Rosmini wasn't going to be bad this year. When I actually saw their roster and who was coming back, Carlos makes a big difference. Carlos Phillips and Rory Taylor and those guys and Lani, like they're all back and they all make a massive difference. And so Rosmini just losing to Westlake. I mean, if one of you can send me the game, I'd love to watch that game. 24-19 to Westlake over Rosmini. Whangarei boys 20-14. Takapuna got a massive win over Kaipara. Murray Jones Trophy from Mahurangi College beating Orewa College is a really good win. And then the other one I got wrong was the Massey High School and Manurewa didn't. I don't know, just didn't perform. I guess just wasn't. I just don't know. Just wasn't on the day. And Massey's maybe Massey is just better. Maybe I just got it wrong. And Massey's just better. Cambridge put up a big score on Tuakau. Te Aomuru College beat Bethlehem College 29-19. Timaru boys lost a close one to Rangiora. And Timaru boys is like in a sort of a rebuilding stage because they do have a lot of young guys. But I thought they would win this game. The Lincoln Combined one, losing to Aoraki Combined, I didn't expect that one at all. But congratulations to them. It might be their first win in like 2 years, I think it is. I might be wrong. But yeah, I was just thinking. Also, Christ, them getting a win over Mid Canterbury Combined. Southland winning against Dunstan, and then South Otago just beating Otago Combine, and Wakatupu they lost to Otago boys 2nd-15. And yeah, so that rounds out all the scores. And all you schools out there that think I don't care about your scores, if you're a small high school, a small first thing, I still want to know what your score is. I still want to post it so everyone can see it. I still want to be able to show everyone that you're there and you exist and you're around and you have a team and stuff like that. Because some guys learn through my website that places exist and they play rugby there. And I know that a lot of you guys are probably confused as like, how would they not know? It's just like, they just don't know what they don't know. You know, some people don't travel as much. Some people don't get around as much. And so, and like, even when some guys in under 15s, they get to travel for the first time. Like, I always laugh at some of these Auckland boys that they don't, and it's just because they're young and they just haven't experienced yet. But once they go to their first under 15 match, first under 15 tournament, and they get to go to Wellington, and then, you know, or they get to go to Hurricanes one or the South Island one or the national one, and then they find out that these kids in Hamilton play, these kids in Palmy play, these kids from, you know, the Hawke's Bay play, these guys from Christchurch are that good, and they're just like, whoa, like, I didn't know these guys were that good around. And, you know, that's just one of those things that they learn. That's the cool thing about traveling, too, as a school, as being able to travel and go to new places that you'd probably never, ever go to with your family, and then finding out all these kids that are, like, really good as well. And that's, like, to me, that's, like, one of the first ones. I think Roland Mills and Rothschild would be the first one that boys get their first experience of, like, playing kids from other areas that you just didn't know existed. And then you get to under 15s and you get to do it again, or you do it for your first time and you're like, wow, I never knew boys could play from these areas. You know, like that kind of thing. Like, I like seeing the Otago boys come up and playing some of the Auckland teams like Grammar and Mags and that. And so those are always cool. And yeah, I just like that kind of feeling. I like seeing their reactions to stuff like that. And so yeah, it's just one of those cool things. The ranking should be up already, and there's going to be some surprise ones. And I think by the fourth set of games, the fifth games, I'll pretty much figure out where teams will be ranking for most of the year and sort of what their range is, because I always look at teams and then I find out, like, okay, They're sort of like a rank from 11 to 22. They're around 20 to 29 is kind of their range where I think that they'll be staying for most of that year, and that comes with the consistency of that. Or when I start seeing teams win and then start winning better and better every single week and beating teams out there, and then all of a sudden that goalpost starts shifting for that team, and they end up going from a 24 to 40 range, and then that gets smaller and smaller, moving to like 14 to 21 range, and you're just like, oh wow, this team is actually. And there's been teams like that have done that, like when St. Peter's won the national championship, they were one of those kind of teams as well, that were doing it. St. John's, Hamilton back, shoot, what year is it? Maybe 4 years ago. They also did that with the massive team that they had, and the poor thing about them was that they couldn't. I mean, they beat Rotorua Boys that year, but they couldn't. They had no one in their competition to play because they weren't in the CNI then. If they were in the CNI on that year, I think they would have beaten St. Paul's, because I think St. Paul's played that. But they would have beaten every team in that competition. And now that they've moved into there now, they get to that opportunity. And so it's sad when you have teams like that are really good. Like Whanganui High School have a really good team this year. They have a lot of good guys that have returned and coming back. Like I was talking about Mount Aspiring as well. They were another team that I really liked too, with a lot of returning guys that I thought would be that would turn out better. And maybe they just need a few more games to just figure that out. But yeah, that was just one of the other things. So, also I wanted to talk about. I don't want to get this going too long, and people ask me that they heard what I was saying before about how I would represent. Well, what would I do in these meetings, or what do I offer? Like, for one, I will offer the experience that I've had with talking with parents and kids, and giving their feedback on how they think and feel, and put it into these meetings so that they can hear another perspective of how their information is portrayed to them. Because to me, sometimes it's not about just the numbers. Numbers not always how it is. The numbers don't always tell the true truth of things. The other thing is that what I would offer as well is that I would offer a report on what the meeting was and what the meeting was said and how they discussed it. Because, one thing I've thought about as well is it's like, well, you guys are having these meetings, but nothing's changed that much. And you don't even tell us what the outcome of the meetings were. I would come with the outcome. I would make a podcast and go, this is what we talked about tonight. This is what was said tonight. I won't say anyone's name and who said it, but I would say, this is what was said tonight, and this is the echo of what's coming out from their side of it, and how they see it, and what they see the problems are, and what they feel like the solutions are. The only thing that I don't agree with what they're doing, or what they have been doing over the years, is that, and some of your dads and uncles and older cousins, or they will tell you that the same argument we're having now about recruiting and about kids, and we had that back in 2000. So what have they sorted out? What, that they've changed the scholarship number, that you've changed from, you can get amount of 6 scholarships to people coming into your school from 6 every 2 years, something like that, from year 11 to year 13, or the new to school number is going to change. But like I said before, they don't care about the scholarships and who's getting them, who's giving them out, because it helps everybody. It really does help everybody. It helps everybody from the school. It helps everybody from the kid. It helps everybody from the parent. It helps the rugby unions when they leave. Of course, if you have a prospect player from a small school coming to a bigger school who has a better rugby program, and this kid is going to be dwindling on that professional and here's a real shot. A lot of kids get shocked when they go from a small school into professional because they're just a good player, but then they haven't had the experience of a pro style training regime that a lot of these big schools have. If you're at a big school, you're not training Tuesdays and Thursday nights. You're probably training 3 nights and then probably 3 or 4 mornings. And then you have your own fitness program, you have your own eating, your your nutritional thing that you should be following and things like that. And so kids just don't get that at smaller schools, and some kids would love to have that kind of stuff, but they just don't have the resources for that, and the school can't offer it to them. And that's not the school's fault, and that's not the kid's fault. But when you get the opportunity to move, of course you're going to take it. And so this argument that they're having, or this discussion about kids going pro, I still think is that when I was at school, the pro game started in '96. So we're not even that. We're 24 years into being a professional sport, and so we still haven't really learned it. But at the same time, I feel like we haven't tried to learn it. We haven't tried to make it work. They've just tried to me, the New Zealand Rugby is just trying to control it. But how can you control it? Because it's falling apart already. Because now, from being signed, you can't be an All Black unless you sign, to the New Zealand Rugby Union. You get pay cuts if you're not signed to New Zealand Rugby Union and you play for somebody else. There's pay cuts on that kind of stuff. To me, the Players Association and the Rugby Union, all those things are together when I think they should be separate. And a lot of people don't know that kind of stuff, but that's how I see it. They don't know how it's run, but if you did, you would have questions about how that works out. And so all these meetings about having kids, just concentrate on school and concentrate on, just playing sport, or, just concentrating on school because that's what education is for, and they shouldn't have contracts, they shouldn't have this. And it's like, well, every kid has to sign a contract to play rugby when they're in high school. And people say it's for ACC reasons, but it's not, because you're signing to the New Zealand Rugby Union. You're not signing to the ACC, you're signing to New Zealand Rugby Union. If that was the case and you shouldn't be signing contracts, why are we signing to New Zealand Rugby Union just because we're playing within the organisation or like under their organisation? It's like, why wouldn't we just sign to the school? I mean, ACC is free for kids. Why do we need New Zealand Rugby Union for that? Just to play under them? But then that makes every kid beholden to them and what they want you to do. Now, this is just a made-up scenario, but what if a kid who was so good when he played for somebody else and then New Zealand Rugby said, well, you've already signed with us, we could stop you from doing that? Like, I don't think New Zealand Rugby will do that, but it doesn't say that they can't do it either. Now, if I have that information wrong, you can hit me up and tell me. But as far as I know, that's what it really, the underlying thing is just like, well, you say it's for ACC reasons. It's like, but at the same time, that doesn't mean we have to sign. Why should we sign with New Zealand Rugby just because it's your competition? But then there's still like underlining, covered up reasons for also what you can use that signature for. That's the kind of thing that I kind of think about when I look at those things. I don't see it just for ACC reasons. Just like making New Zealand secondary schools, is that you have to sign with New Zealand Rugby Union to play in New Zealand secondary schools. If you don't sign it, then you can't play. That's why some guys don't actually make New Zealand secondary schools, because they go, I don't know, because I still want to think about league. Then they don't make New Zealand secondary schools or New Zealand Barbarians or anything like that. But I mean, that's what I would offer when I go into these meetings, is just a different perspective of and information that I've gathered on my own, and experiences that I've been told by parents and kids and principals and coaches from a different perspective, that even those things that those guys are beholden to is they're like, a lot of times they don't agree with some of the stuff, but they just have to do it. They have to be. They have no other choice. But that's the perspective I'm going to give, and then I'm going to actually report. I don't know if we've had all these meetings. They've had a bunch of meetings, and I have never heard a report of one of them after that. They just make moves and say that's just what it is. And just to bring it back to that one from last year's, that never really was a report on it. They just told us what they were doing. They got some signatures and said, "Oh, these guys have signed it." I was like, "Yeah, but what was the discussion over that?" Because I mean, that recruiting thing is terrible, man. Every big school recruits. I'm talking to you fellas out there that keep denying that you guys don't recruit. If you can outwardly come in and call me out and say we don't recruit, and you're a big school and you're a big rugby program and you say that you don't recruit, you call me out. Just know that I'm going to come after you too. Because you know you do. You know you recruit players. You know you recruit from other schools. Remember, I follow kids from year 10. I find out where they are at year 10. And if they end up at your school in year 11 or year 12, and you're saying just by chance they just moved across the country, cut it out, boy. And that's the thing that I don't like, is that you just outwardly come out there and just go like, we don't do it. We don't do it. It's like, bro, do you want me to call out your roster on this? It's like, I can easily contact the parents. I know who's moving around the country. Sometimes I hear it before the school knows that I've heard it. Because there's a trust, like people trust me with this kind of stuff, and they ask me my opinions, like, should my son go here? What's the good things and bad things about this? A lot of you guys that have recruited players don't know that the parents have talked to me and asked me questions about it. That's the other thing that bothers me. Is I convince parents sometimes to go to a school if they don't feel good about it. And I say, well, in terms of education and in terms of the kid being better at rugby, if that's what you want, that school's great to go to. And if they go, oh, I don't feel good, I say, that's fine. If you don't feel good and you don't feel good, then don't send them there. But I'm giving you my experiences, like, this is what I've seen, and these are the kids that have come out of it, and it's gone. And pretty much all of them so far have succeeded with the schools that they've gone to. There's been a few boys that haven't. And even then, it hasn't been the school's fault. Sometimes it's just the kid. Just doesn't want to do it. But other than that, I hope I answered your questions. I wanted to talk about the Warriors. I don't like talking about the Warriors, I get depressed. Because bloody Chiefs lost yesterday as well. Like that was heartbreaking too. And then even though the Warriors won, it doesn't feel like we won. It just doesn't have that same. Maybe because we all know how bad it is going. That it doesn't even feel like we're winning even when we won. And just like I said with the agents, right? Like there's the story now that the agent who has 4 guys signed under him to the Warriors, and he's using them as bargaining chips. Like agents like that, to me, if that's what he's actually doing, staff that guy, honestly. Because that, to me, after that, that's not your career. He's just using your career as leverage to get his way with whatever he wants to do and whatever his agenda is. Like, agents like that is like... Like, when you look at the NBA as well, like, agency like LeBron and that, there's a bunch of them all signed to the same guy, and who's a Rosenhaus, I think it is, and he doesn't really... Well, you don't know if he leverages it or not. But you get deals done better if you have those kind of clients. When it comes to trading and stuff like that, your negotiation is going to be a whole lot different. because you don't have to go to another agent to say, what do you think about this? It's just like, well, I have this guy. Like, if you follow basketball, especially the NBA, is that if you have a three-team trade and you have two guys or three guys and the two teams that you had, you're just like, well, I can negotiate that right now and say that we can move those guys. And there's always like that agent power thing too much. Some agents have too much power, and that's the other problem I have with New Zealand is that you only have so many few agents that are accredited. Like, you don't have to have an accredited agent in New Zealand. They just say it's good for them. You don't have to have it. You know. I mean, I've thought about being an agent as well. Not accredited, because I wouldn't. If I became an agent, I wouldn't become accredited. Some guys like that kind of stuff, and that's fine. But if that was me, I wouldn't become accredited. Not at all. I'll be solely committed just to my clientele. I'll be like, no, I'm working for you. You're the rugby player. I work for you. I'm not answering to anybody else because I don't work for them. To me, that's how I perceive it. Is that, those agents are working for New Zealand Rugby, even though they're not supposed to be, kind of thing. So like, when you get agents and you start talking about agents and their players and stuff like that, and then especially even in the NFL is the same way as well. It's just like, some agents have too much power that it becomes that way. And so like, if that's happening in the Warriors like right now and what they're reporting, it's like, man, that's going to be a hard thing to deal with, it's because you and your agent should have. And this is to you boys and parents, like you and your agent, whoever you've chosen to be your agent, you should feel good about who you've got. And you should feel that your their best intentions for you is for you alone, not for you connected with somebody else to make a move on this and all that kind of stuff, right? And that's kind of how it feels right now with the Warriors situation. Kind of feels that way, that it's like that, and so... I don't know. I just hope it's not like that. But the win didn't feel good, and even Alex Glenn crying at the end, and everyone, people that think he's soft and stuff like that, it's like, no, that's a lot of frustration. Like that's a lot of frustration, and whatever is happening in their camp as well, and in the Broncos camp, it's the same thing. It's just like, people, and you good boys are gonna learn this real quick once you guys become professionals, is that you get some fans that are bending in the wind when it comes to supporting teams. I am a diehard Chiefs fan. I love the Chiefs fan, and I'm never going to say that they suck. And I'm never going to say that about the Warriors. I'm never going to say that about my Jazz, and I'm never going to say that about my Chargers. And I just say we're struggling. I'm never going to say we suck. Because I look at the improvements we can make and the improvements of where we need to be. Not that we're never going to get there. Because to me, if you suck, you never have a way out. Or you're 5 years in a way out. And you just have to be, I guess, positive in the way that you. And I understand if you're a Warriors fan like I am, you just have to hold on to that positivity a little bit more. And I love Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and the way he leads the team. And you can just see how much he just wants to win. And then when I saw Alex Glenn and the way that he's doing it too and how he's reacted, like, yeah, we should understand that too. I mean, the bloody Storm came into our changing rooms to talk to our team. They didn't have to do that kind of stuff. But they know the situation, how bad it is. So I'd never say that about him, but that was just one of the things that I looked at too, and I thought, far out, that must be pretty hard. He couldn't even hold it until he got to the changing rooms. Like that kind of thing is like, ugh. Because he knows he's gonna cop a lot, especially in Brisbane, and how serious they take their things. And one of my cousins, he's a diehard Broncos fan as well, and he doesn't cuss, but he'll be close. He'll be close to it. Yeah. But yeah, my Chiefs lost to in a pretty bad way. But I mean, what are you gonna do? Kind of doesn't feel like a full season though. That's the other thing is it doesn't feel like a full season. And to me, it is kind of strange that we don't see Australian teams and South African teams and the Sunwolves and that. You know, that's still a strange thing as well. Is that like we're not seeing those guys? I love South African teams. I love South African teams that come over. I love some Australian teams too. Not all of them, but some of them. But I love South African teams though. Like I'm a big fan of them. Um, they'll probably be the other team that comes after the All Blacks and Samoa for me. If I was to support us, I'd be supporting South African teams. What was the other one? Waiting for the NBA to start up. Love the NBA. Love basketball. Basketball is my favorite sport. It's not rugby, but basketball is my favorite sport. And my Jazz have a massive opportunity to win this. I don't know. You can't even call that a championship either. You can't call that a championship either. You can't call that like it's going to be one of those rings that whoever wins is going to have an asterisk next to their name of like it's a championship, but it's kind of not. Like even when the lockout happened, like back in the days for the NBA, it's the same with them. Even with the MLB and even hockey went through it too when they had their lockout as well. So they had a really short season. I mean, the baseball's MLB's trying to do 60 games, I think it is, instead of their normal 120 or 140 or whatever. They have a huge amount of games. That's why their rotations are big in terms of pitches and that. But I mean, yeah. I'm waiting for the NBA, waiting for that. I'm wondering if they actually bring heaps of, like how they were talking about the, they're talking about four of Tyson and Anthony Joshua. That fight coming here or maybe coming here. It's like, I mean, why wouldn't they? You know, like even the UFC. I'm surprised that they haven't brought it here. I'm surprised that the UFC didn't bring the Hooker fight here. That would have been a mean one because at least they'll have a crowd. But I kind of like watching the UFC without the crowd around. I like, man, whoa, hearing those damn punches and knees and elbows and kicks and stuff, far out, especially when you're getting the inside legs. Oof. Just hearing that slap on the legs, on the thighs and stuff. Damn, those look sore. And it sounds cool too. And I think it's funny when you can hear the commentators and you can hear each other's corner yelling out instructions and the person's trying to counter the instructions within their head and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty funny. It's like Ultimate Fighting when you watch the Ultimate Fighting for UFC as well. That's what the netball just started up too. Haven't really followed it a lot. I probably should. I like watching the netball. And our Magic team. But yeah, that's probably about it. I'm going to Gisborne Boys tomorrow. That one down in Taupo, the Gisborne and St. Paul's Collegiate, and it'll be my first time seeing both of them in action properly. And then the other games for this weekend, I'm not too sure what other games I'm going to be going to, but I'll be going to some more games this weekend and try and find some week games that I can go to as well. But yeah, just as always, that like and subscribe and comment and all that kind of stuff, share it. And do me a massive favor that every time you go into my website, click on the ad so Google can pay me some stuff, so they can pay me. Click on the ad. You don't have to buy anything. Just click on a few ads or something like that, and then help me out a little bit. But that's me. I hope I've been able to answer all your guys' questions and that some clarity on it. The next few weeks of rugby games, the next 3 weeks is really going to see how teams, what teams really are. You're going to really find out what the teams are kind of like, how the competitions are going to go. Especially with the 1A, it's really going to make a difference when you're just going on points. I actually don't know why they're not having a finals. Why they're not having a semi-finals and a finals. Because it doesn't really clash with any dates, and it's not like the boys are overworked in terms of rugby load. because everybody else is having finals. So I'm not too sure why they're not. But I'll just ask somebody anyway. Someone within the union will educate me on that. But yeah, please, everyone that jumps onto my website, please click on an ad or two, just to help me out a bit. And yeah, that's First for Fruin. Top 200. Peace.